appreciate it very much. Thank you for being here this evening. I'd like to welcome you to the March 27th meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education. Prior to this meeting, the board conducted an executive session pursuant to KRS 61.8101F of the Kentucky Open Meetings Act and a work session to discuss the proposed racial equity policy. No action was taken during the work session. Prior to our moment of silence tonight, I have something that I just wanted to read because we have great students in this district, and I wanted to acknowledge that before we do our moment of silence. We desire to have a society where individual rights, freedoms, compassion, diversity, and kindness make up the core of our citizenship. I'm often reminded of an African proverb. When a visitor visits an African village, the first question he or she asks is, how are the children? The question tells the story and heartbeat of the village. That remains one of my guiding questions. This board is committed to meeting the needs of all of our students and educating them well. After experiencing the March for Our Lives movement this past weekend, I think we may be able to answer the question for our country. The children are doing well. They possess the power of hope, and hope will indeed change the world. Watching them on Saturday, seeing some of our own students from Manual being interviewed has inspired me with more hope. I think the future is in great hands with the children leading the charge. At this moment, could we have a moment of silence, please? Thank you. This evening, we're going to be led in the pledge by Jessica Ferguson, who is a student at Farnsley Middle School, and her brother, Jack Ferguson, from Medora Elementary. If you would come forward, please, and would we please stand for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The vision statement this evening will be read by board member Dr. Chris Kolb.
All Jefferson County public school students graduate prepared, empowered, and inspired to reach their full potential and contribute as thoughtful, responsible citizens of our diverse, shared world.
Thank you, Dr. Kolb. At this time, I would like to invite Terry Robinson up, who will lead us through our recognitions and resolutions. Thank you, Ms. Robinson.
Dr. Polio, Board Chair Diane Porter, and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education. This evening, we have the honor of recognizing an outstanding JCPS teacher and student. We begin with the recognition of Jennifer Ferguson, a Farnsley Middle School student. She was selected to be featured in the National Dance Across the USA book. She was the only dancer from Kentucky and one of 50 from across the country to be featured in this book. Jennifer was photographed at Cumberland Falls by master photographer Jonathan Givens. Dance Across the USA was Mr. Givens' passion project, born from his desire to showcase the fabric of America, to shine a spotlight on the importance of dance, and to highlight the diversity that exists in both the physical landscape and in the dancers who make America their home. Dr. Polio, Board Member Benjamin Gies, and Assistant Superintendent Dr. Glenn Beatty, please come forward to extend congratulations to Jennifer. Joining in the recognition is her principal, Linda Hudson. I'd also like to ask her parents and her brother to stand and be recognized. Next, we have the honor of recognizing Jonathan Joseph, a teacher at Butler Traditional High School, who was selected as the 6th regional finalist for the Secretary of State's 2018 Outstanding Civic Education Leadership Award. The award recognizes any P through 16 teacher, school administrator, educational leader, legislator, or community leader who has made notable contributions toward promoting or implementing civic learning to prepare Kentucky students to be engaged and responsible citizens. Dr. Polio, Board Member Benjamin Gies, and Assistant Superintendent Dr. Glenn Beatty, please come forward to congratulate Mr. Joseph. Joining in the recognition is his principal, William Allen. Dr. Polio and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education, this concludes our recognitions for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Is there a motion to receive the recognitions this evening? Board Member Geese, seconded by Board Member Brady. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. At this time, we take a little break to allow our students and adults who would like to leave at this time before we go on with the rest of the building. Congratulations to our students, to our teacher. Keep up the good work, and thank you for being here tonight. We'll take a couple of minutes break for those that need to leave at this time. Thank you. Testing. Okay, there we go. Okay. Okay, moving on with our agenda. Is there a, are there any requests for revisions to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda? Board Member Duncan, second by Board Member Geese. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the March 13th meeting? Board Member Cole, second by Board Member Brady. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. It's my pleasure at this time to introduce our superintendent, Dr. Marty Polio, for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Chair Porter. And board members, I'm proud to come to you today as no longer acting. I've signed the contract today, so I'm very proud to represent. Thank you. Appreciate that. That wasn't the reason for that. Thank you. Stop. You didn't want to get up, Cordelia? I saw that. I saw that. Thank you very much. I say that as we have a very thick binder today, as you know, and we are beginning a lot of progress today for the first time on our 5-point plan over the next several months for major change in this district. So I'd like to highlight each of these, and first starting with reorganization that we are addressing today very assertively. And as you well know, a substantial part of the reorganization is highlighted on the board agenda, and you've probably now had substantial time to review the report from the Council of Great City Schools. We will continue to do that, as I know it's a lot to unpack. We've made that document public, sent it to all employees yesterday so that everybody has had the time to look at it. And it's a nervous time for all of our district. Anytime that an organization takes on substantial reorganization, it's a challenging time. And so although the document, which comes from the Council of Great City Schools, which is made up of experts from large city school districts across America, like Los Angeles, Miami, Houston, and many other districts, that documents many of the challenges we currently face. I do believe it's also very positive about the future of our district and the things that we can do if we have the will to make these big changes, and these changes start tonight. They will directly impact the three focus areas that we've talked about since last summer: improving climate and culture, increasing student learning, and improving organizational coherence. You'll know I'll share more about these changes during our action items. You've had time to review all these changes. This is only the first of several recommendations to you. So we will have many more coming at the April 23rd meeting and possibly the May 8th meeting. I know it's a quick turnaround, but if we plan on doing this by July 1, we have to move quickly. And I know that's difficult at times, but it is something we have to do, and I think it's imperative for the improvement of our district. Simply put, our goal is to have an efficient and extremely professional central office that supports the Vision 2020, the strategic plan, and student success at all schools. And we're also going to strive to return teaching positions to the schools and classrooms throughout the district. So I will share more. This assertive plan, it's all based on the recommendation of the Council for Great City Schools, but I do believe that tonight will move us forward significantly. Also, as you know, we're revamping Vision 2020, and we're well on our way to beginning that work. You have a timeline in front of you that I wanted to provide to you tonight that talks about the work that we will be doing over the next couple of months before we bring to you our Vision 2020 work with a work session at the end of May, and then in the first meeting in June, we will be bringing to you this revamping of Vision 2020. And it's really going to be specific about the work we're going to do over the next 30 months with this timeline. And our goal is to have a strategic plan with a dashboard and quarterly reports to you that provides you with information so that we can all have a laser-like focus on where we're going. With a backpack of skills, our graduation profile, I can't thank Dr. Coleman and her team and all of our schools enough for providing input on this backpack of skills. I know we've talked about it a lot since our board retreat in January. I've said it a lot. We've talked about it at great length. But our goal is simply put in this is to make sure that not only is every kid transition ready at every point, but that we're teaching those right skills so every student will be college and career ready and are receiving the type of instruction in their classroom to contribute to that. And also schools and teachers can provide interventions necessary to make sure everyone is transition ready. We plan on having our first version of this to you at our next meeting, April 24th, for your feedback. Every student in JCPS is going to contribute to this backpack of skills. I want to commend Dr. Coleman for creating a video series explaining the backpack of skills for schools and public. If we had more time, I'd probably show one of her episodes tonight, but I don't think she wanted that up there. But I would encourage anyone to go to YouTube, just type in Carmen Coleman in the search. I'm hoping that that's the only thing that pops up, but you will find a What's in Your Backpack series on YouTube. Very well done. That explains the process that we are undergoing at every single school. I believe this is going to revolutionize classroom instruction in JCPS and be a nationwide model for preparing students for their future. Facilities, as you know, we are continuing our journey with facilities today. This has been one of the most difficult challenges we faced. Tonight will be the last recommendation, major change we will make to you for the 18-19 school year. We've had many public forums, committee meetings, discussions. We're proud of the recommendation we're bringing to you, and we think it will address and give better support to some of our most vulnerable students. We'll continue to develop this Vision 2020 facilities plan that we plan to bring to you in the next 3 months that will detail what we're going to do over 30 months by December 31st, 2020. And finally, as you know, we're currently working through the process of developing the committee to work on our task force around alternative schools, how we deliver wraparound services and quality instruction to our most at-risk students. recommendations will be centered around counseling, career and tech ed, and the things that will make these students successful. So as I finish tonight, and I'd like to thank Dr. Wilner for pointing this out to me, I did want to read this part here because I think it's important from the Council of Great City Schools, the last 2 paragraphs, because I think it sums up exactly what we need to do. And they state in their report, shortly after our visit, the Board of Education announced the appointment of Acting Superintendent Marty Polio as the new superintendent of schools. The council team found Dr. Polio to be acutely aware of the district's organizational challenges and the toll it was taking on the district's effectiveness. He appeared determined to sharpen the system's direction. It was also clear to the council's team that district staff and the school board seemed hungry for leadership, clarity, and course correction. There is no reason to believe that the district's very experienced and committed staff will not rise to the occasion if appropriately led by the school board and the superintendent. The Council of Great City Schools emerged from their review very optimistic about the district's future and stands at the ready to help going forward. And I think that says a lot about our future and where we're going as we move through these difficult times. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Polio. We're now going to move to the next agenda item, which are speakers for this evening. This evening, we have 4 speakers to address the board regarding action, information, or consent items, and we have 14 speakers that are requesting to address the board regarding non-agenda items. I'm going to read the section about what we are allowed to do as we have speakers so that everyone is clear before we get started. In accordance with Board Policy 01.421, the board expects that persons who have signed up to address the board will limit their remarks to the subject that they listed at the time they signed up, that their presentation will not include any defamatory or abusive remarks about that subject, and that they will present their remarks in a manner that is consistent with the orderly conduct of the meeting. Also, in accordance with board policy, the board reserves the right to limit, extend, or terminate discussion on any subject. Speakers before the entire board are not allowed to use props, displays, or any other objects during the presentation. However, informational handouts may be given to the Assistant Secretary to the board for distribution prior to or following the meeting. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to address the board and may not share these minutes with any other speaker. At the end of 2.5 minutes, a bell will sound once. You will then have 30 seconds to finish your statement. At the end of 3 minutes, the bell will sound twice, indicating that your time is up. The superintendent will look into the speaker's issues and, if necessary, represent the board in following up or recommend action to the board. The full board policy concerning public participation in open meetings is available for viewing on our website and at our sign-in sheet. So I'm going to start with the speakers. There is one speaker that will have a little bit extra time because she's asked for that, and I am happy to allow that because of circumstances. And it says in the policy that we are in fact allowed to do that. So starting with the speakers this evening on the agenda items, the first speaker is Mark Bouchard. Mark Bouchard. Welcome, Mr. Bouchard. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Board, for allowing me a few minutes of your time. I'm Mark Bouchard with Catholic Charities, and I'm here to speak on behalf and support of the ESL Newcomer program. And you have a copy of a few talking points. I'm not going to read through all of those necessarily, but I do want to highlight and mention that we are in support of the Myers Building location that would be very accessible to many of our clients who live in the Fagenbush area as far as combining the Newcomer site into one site. And that's mainly because of logistics. A lot of our families have difficulties when they first arrive, excuse me, in finding their routes. They may have one youngster in a particular Newcomer site, an older youngster in another site, and they seem to have difficulty from time to time finding the routes in the timely fashion. So we're in support of that. We would like to mention that ESL, Newcomer, and Iroquois International Academy are wonderful partners with us, and we appreciate the many ways that they go above and beyond to support our students and families of our refugee resettlement community. Refugee resettled brothers and sisters of ours have a number of issues dealing with adjusting to coming to our United States. Personally, I've been with Catholic Charities since 1992, and I could never teach as much as I've learned from them. It's an amazing place. And so with this in mind, we invite you to seriously consider the combining to one site for the convenience and development, further development of our refugee population. So thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
We don't get to ask questions, we just get to listen.
Good, because I have no answers.
Okay, well, so that's a win-win, right? Thank you so much for being here this evening. Our next speaker is Jed Hendricks. Mr. Hendricks, thank you for being here this evening, and he's going to speak to us about ESL also. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me a few moments to speak with you. My name is Jed Hendricks, and I'm the Executive Director of the Global Human Project, which is a local nonprofit organization dedicated to helping welcome and integrate immigrants and refugees into our community. I worked for several years at Kentucky Refugee Ministries, and I'm now finishing a PhD at Bellarmine University with a focus on immigrant and refugee welcome and integration. I'm here to speak in favor of moving all of the Newcomer Academy classes and services to the Phoenix location. There are many reasons why I think this is a good idea, but there are two which I think are the most significant. First, a school specifically dedicated to newcomer students will allow them to build a sense of identity and belonging. Instead of feeling like they are an add-on program to another school, they will have the opportunity to develop a sense of pride and belonging in their school. A recent report titled "Belonging and Connection During Resettlement" states, levels of school belonging have significant impacts on immigrants and refugees, depression, and self-efficacy. Adolescents who experienced more attachment, commitment, involvement, and belief in their school had attained higher levels of self-efficacy and showed lower levels of depression. The need to belong is significant for all of us. But for those who have experienced the trauma of being displaced from their homes, a feeling of belonging can be transformative, a significant experience in their healing and integration. By providing newcomer students a school of their own, we can help them cultivate, maybe for the first time in their lives, a sense that they belong. A second reason to support this proposal is that it makes it easier and more efficient to surround newcomer students and their families with integrated services. I have 3 articles here, and there are many more, which show how schools specifically designed for newcomers are effective and efficient locations for holistic services for students and their families. Besides Kentucky Refugee Ministries and Catholic Charities, Newcomer Academy has more contact with immigrants and refugees than any other organization in our community. Having one centralized location where our community and service providers can focus their energies and resources will allow us to surround not only the students, but their families with incredible amount of resources and opportunities to provide them services that they desperately need. A centralized location will also create a local hub for our community to celebrate the wonderful gifts our new neighbors bring to our lives and our community. For those reasons, I invite you to agree to the proposal of putting all of the services at the Phoenix Hill location. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. Our next speaker is Zayam Mohammed. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for giving me time to speak with you. My name is Zamzam Mohammed. I now was the first ESL student. A couple years ago, I'm currently a student at IUS, second year in education, and I'm here to speak behalf of ESL student getting a new building to get opportunity to get more community involved, get a lot of volunteers. And I think ESL, when I came to this country first, I spoke no word of English, so I had a lot of opportunity than I wouldn't have if I was in ESL, if I wasn't in that school. So I would consider if you could take, of consideration, if you would allow the ESL student to, to move this area, because it's a central area where we can get involved and they can engage with other schools. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being here tonight. Our next speaker is Marco Morales. Marco Morales. I hope I did not mispronounce. Marcos. Okay, thank you. Welcome.
No worries. Hi, thank you all for your time here. Hi, good evening. My name is Marcos Gabriel Morales Gutierrez. I work at the University of Louisville as program coordinator of the Latino and Hispanic initiatives within the Cultural Center. Tonight, I'm here to ask for your support to relocate ESL Newcomer Academy into their very own building. Prior to my employment at the University of Louisville for the past 2 years, I've had the privilege to serve the ESL Newcomer Academy community as a bilingual associate instructor, and the thought of there being one location for this wonderful school makes me so thrilled. A centralized location would make the school more accessible to parents, students, and the broader community. Being in one building would also allow students to more easily foster a sense of identity. Please consider voting in favor of this tonight. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, sir, for being here tonight. Moving on to our speakers on non-agenda items. Our first speaker is Nicole Finley. I'm sorry, Ms. Finley. Nicole Finley. Nicole Finley. Our next speaker is Sadie Finley. Sadie Finley. Welcome, Ms. Finley.
I want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to say what I need to say. As one of 2 African Americans in my advanced algebra 2 class at DuPont Manual High School, the other being my twin sister, I already have to work more diligently compared to the other students in class. I was accused of fabricating a grade on a quiz in front of the class and called a liar. I ran out of the classroom in tears from being labeled as a cheater and a liar in front of my peers. An investigation of bullying was conducted based off of how I felt intimidated and the tone the teacher used when speaking with me, as well as his proximity when he spoke very harshly to me. During the investigation, my parents and I voiced that I felt bullied and intimidated by the teacher, and in retaliation, the next day, my teacher moved me to the front of the class to the desk directly next to his table. Throughout this investigation, where I felt unsafe and targeted, my teacher remained in the classroom and I had to look at him daily. My teacher lowered my grades due to his allegations of cheating. My teacher had to be directed by administration several times to restore my original grade before he returned my grade to what I had rightly earned. As a student who suffers from anxiety, I have a 504 plan to accommodate my academic needs. On several occasions, my math teacher violated my 504 by not giving me the proper time to take quizzes in his class. My teacher sent several prolonged emails to my parents explaining how, because of my anxiety developing from this situation, he strongly recommended that I switch down to honors algebra, a lower level course. Instead of offering help or differentiated instruction, he suggested I drop his class. Also, he repeatedly stated in his emails that during class, I asked too many questions. To my understanding, the teacher is to answer any questions students have, and having a lot of questions is better than not having any questions at all. All I asked for was an apology and to be treated fairly and equally in the classroom, but didn't get either. In my opinion, my principal handled my situation poorly. I say poorly because why else would this teacher feel that he couldn't continue to treat me this way? As a consequence, my anxiety and depression worsened. As my dad seen that my condition had worsened during this time, he voiced to the principal that he didn't think he was doing enough to get through to my teacher. After this communication, my principal began to come into my classes, not math, but other classes, and oddly and sometimes I felt evilly glare at me. These actions by my principal made me feel very uncomfortable and intimidated. At the start of this difficult time, my parents asked me if I trusted the principal to handle the situation. Mistakenly, I chose to trust him and that he would handle everything. Looking back on this troubling and sad situation, I do not feel that my feelings and concerns as a student were treated with concern. I feel that my teacher and principal's view of the situation was far more important than mine. I felt my voice was taken away, and now I'm taking it back. This is my story, and I hope that my sharing will open eyes to the discriminatory, toxic, and disgusting environment that still exists at DuPont Manual High School.
Thank you for being here this evening. Our next speaker is Noelle Golden. Noelle Golden.
Good evening. My name is Noelle Tennis Golden, and I'm the proud parent of a third grader and a fifth grader at JFK Montessori. I'm here tonight because ever since the incident this past fall involving the school resource officer at Jefferson Town High School, I have grown increasingly uncomfortable with the presence of armed police and resource officers in our schools. Tonight, I want to add my voice to the growing number of parents, teachers, students, and concerned citizens calling for their removal from our schools. When I drop my children off at school in the morning, I want to know, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that they will come home to me safe and sound at the end of the day. But a recent white paper from the ACLU shows that police presence in schools does not lead to safer schools. In fact, across the board, it leads instead to the criminalization and the endangerment of our children. And some students are more directly affected by this than others. Students of color are more likely than white students to be viewed as acting criminally, and they are more than twice as likely as white students to be referred to law enforcement. This is despite the fact that there is no evidence that racial disparities in discipline result from differences in rates of behavior or types of behavior by students of color and white students. Furthermore, one study of law enforcement referrals in a high school found that 26% of all students referred to law enforcement were special needs children, even though this segment of students represented only 14% of the high school's enrollment. School safety is understandably at the top of everyone's minds these days, given recent events. And in response, some people are calling for more police in our schools. Tonight, I am asking you to resist those calls. I'm asking you to divert resources away from armed police and resource officers in our schools and to direct them instead to school staff trained in conflict resolution, restorative justice practices, and mental health counseling. This, in my opinion, is the only way we can ensure the true safety of all our children. Thank you.
Thank you for being here this evening, Ms. White. Our next speaker is Darian White. Darian White. Welcome, Ms. White.
Thank you all for allowing me to speak to you tonight. My name is Darian White, and I'm a senior at DuPont Manual. I am here to implore you and Dr. Polio to take immediate action to protect my physical, emotional, and psychological health, as well as those of my fellow schoolmates, by removing my principal from the building, at least until the investigation into his actions is complete. Manual has been a wonderful experience for me until my senior year, this year. This year is when I'm supposed to be free and feel like I'm on top and I'm almost out, but something has been off. For me, the downward spiral started when my favorite new staff member was accused of a sexual crime in Indiana. To ensure our safety, he was immediately removed from the campus due to an ongoing investigation. Then, accusations and recordings came out against my principal, and it was like the floodgates opened. The accusations included things like him bullying students, pulling students out of class to privately have inappropriate conversations with him, making what would be considered racially insensitive comments and or outright racist ones. These are just many things. I would be here all night if I told you everything. I am intentionally leaving out my encounter with him. However, I will share that I am uncomfortable at my school. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells at my school. I feel like my senior year has been ruined, and I feel like I will be retaliated against when me or my mother speak up. Despite several students and parents vocalizing that these accusations created an oppressive, intimidating, unstable, and psychological unsafe atmosphere, the principal has been allowed to remain in the building during the investigation. Allowing an oppressor with power to remain further oppresses the people who caused the investigation to occur. Leaving him has sent a very clear message to students and demonstrates to us that our collective voices are unheard and that you believe they have no power. This investigation has been going on for months, and there has been absolutely no communication from JCPS, which creates more stress and anxiety for us and our families. Then, to put the icing on the cake, one of the teachers at my school was removed to campus due to an ongoing investigation. I do not know all the details regarding her removal. My friends have shared some information, and according to them, this happened during an Alice school drill. If this is true, and in light of our recent situations that our nation has faced, it is very important that we know how to protect ourselves in all ways possible. Perhaps people say that she should not have been giving a real-life demonstration on a student, but we can't afford to sugarcoat things anymore. Bullets are real. There is no practice, there is no warning, there can only be action. I would rather know that action is being shown to children how to protect themselves, then I would see no issue. Does the district have a policy outlining which allegations require a removal during an investigation? The two teachers that were removed while being investigated were black. However, my white principal has remained. Is there a process to ensure the practice of removal that is applied consistently? Why were the black staff and faculty members immediately removed from the building during the investigation while my principal was able to stay? These actions at Manual show exactly how disparities are created. How can we be assured that this is not also happening between black and white students throughout our district? Either way, the students, parents, and teachers at Manual deserve better, and we deserve answers. We should not be collateral damage. This environment is not safe, and it is causing us harm. Instead of being focused on my friends, hanging out with my friends, senior prom and graduation, and moving on to college, I am focused on these issues. Thank you.
Thank you for being here this evening. I'm going to stop for just a second because I have a text from a colleague on the board, and the question that's asked is, are we allowed to talk about staff? Frank, would you, Mr. Mellon, would you please address that before we go on? Because I think we've clarified that before, but just so everybody can hear, please.
Not allowed to make personal accusations against employees by name because the board does not have personnel authority over employees, and that's the superintendent's job to do that. The items that are being talked about, I think, have been reported in the news media and are not confidential in that sense, and I think that generalized discussion of the type that we have heard so far tonight is appropriate, but if it begins to cross a line, I will speak up about that.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Just wanted to make sure that we were clear. Our next speaker is Hallie Dzarek. I'm sorry.
It's a hard one. Bouchard.
Ms. Halley, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to address you today. I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible, but I'd like to ask your permission to finish my statement if I go a little bit over.
A little bit over. 3 minutes is the allowed time, and let's try to make it if we can.
Sure,
Okay?
I'll try my best. I speak to you today with grave concern about the way JCPS has handled instances of assault in a kindergarten classroom. My son attends Breckenridge Franklin Elementary School. On March 14th, I was contacted by the principal and informed that my son's kindergarten teacher had been reported by another party for inappropriately touching her students in an aggressive manner. She told me that the teacher had been removed from the classroom pending an investigation, and that as part of that investigation, my son had been interviewed. In this interview, he disclosed to them that his teacher had harmed him on multiple occasions. He reported that she had smacked him on the head, flicked him in the face, and kicked his chair in anger when his work was not up to her standards. As you can imagine, this news was shocking, but I felt confident that JCPS would handle the incident appropriately. Because my son has recently been adopted from foster care and has a diagnosis of PTSD, I felt it necessary to contact his therapist at Centerstone. The therapist asked if CPS had been notified about the incidents in his classroom, and to my knowledge, they had not. The therapist let me know that she would file a report, and that evening at 8 p.m., CPS arrived at our home unannounced to interview my son about what had happened in his class. At that time, he recapped everything that was mentioned before and also said that he had witnessed his teacher striking 2 other boys in his class. The swift response of social services that evening seemed rather odd if CPS had already been notified the day before, so I was led to believe that the school did not in fact file a report, which, if true, is illegal since Kentucky has mandatory reporting laws. The following day, March 16th, I visited the school at drop-off and was directed to speak with the school guidance counselor. I let him know that CPS had interviewed my son the previous evening and asked if they had been involved up to this point. He said that they had not. To this day, no one has been able to give me a tracking number or a time and date of reporting. Last Friday, I wrote the principal asking about the situation in the classroom. A few hours later, she called me and let me know that the investigation was over and that our original teacher would be returning to the same classroom on Wednesday, March 28th. This was completely horrifying. A teacher that had been accused by multiple parties of hitting children was being allowed back in the classroom. The principal stated that she understood my frustration, but this was a union employee and that there was nothing she could do other than move my child to another classroom. For several reasons, I found this unacceptable. First, multiple students had been hurt by this teacher, and even if all of them were moved to other classrooms, the students who remained would still have witnessed her violence and would be forced to live in fear for the remainder of the school year. Second, to my knowledge, other parents in the classroom had not been notified of the investigation. It seems like they have the right to know if their child's teacher was suspected of harming her students so that they could make an informed decision about whether or not to keep their children under her care. Third, for my child, simply moving classrooms would not be enough. All of the kindergarten classrooms are in the same hall. Even if he were placed in another class, he would see his abuser multiple times a day. This contact would be a significant trauma trigger for him and severely inhibit his ability to learn. I was told that if I was unhappy with the outcome, I could contact a supervisor, an assistant superintendent. When he returned my call that afternoon, he informed me that the teacher had been disciplined for her actions and that returning her to the same school and classroom was the only possible outcome. He told me that if I was concerned about the impact of trauma triggers caused by my son's proximity to his abuser, we could switch schools. At this point, I felt it necessary to contact the board. I found it incredibly unjust that the victims in this case were the ones being asked to rearrange their lives. It is victim blaming, pure and simple, to ask a victim to move and allow a perpetrator to stay. Additionally, I was afraid that JCPS did not use the proper channels in carrying out this investigation and that they have broken the law by either not reporting or delaying the report of child abuse on one of their campuses to CPS. I was also certain that if this teacher was returned to a classroom, the district would set themselves up for future lawsuits due to the gross negligence of putting a teacher who has, by JCPS's own admission, been disciplined for inappropriately touching her students back into the classroom. I will state that after a letter to the board and the promise of drawing media attention to this issue, this afternoon I was informed that there was new information in the case and that the investigation would be ongoing, which means that the teacher in question will not be returning to the school tomorrow. I'm happy to hear that the matter is being given more consideration, but I'm still concerned that the parents in the affected classroom have not been contacted regarding what their children have witnessed. No parent in their right mind would let their child stay in that environment, and the fact that JCPS thinks it's acceptable to keep parents in the dark about such behavior raises serious concerns about every classroom in this district. Thank you.
Thank you for being here this evening. It appears that I have skipped someone on the list, and Lacone White, Miss White, I'm sorry if I missed you. Miss White, I apologize. I'm sorry? Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you for being here, and we are giving you a little extra time, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm heartbroken to have to be here and to have to hear my child and these other children speak about the conditions not only at Mayo, but at the other schools as well. There is clearly a system problem. There's a transparency problem. There's a communication problem. There's a caring problem. I made my daughter's school aware that of my head problems and the fact that she had to be my primary caregiver her whole high school career. I did not want that for my child. She didn't want that for her. We expect this to be the time of her life. If any of you believe she needs any part of her life to be complicated by anything at school, you'd be wrong. She needs to have a very tightly managed school situation. A principal that can lead. A principal who is not causing problems, but is helping kids solve them. This is one kid in the know her situation. How many others that they don't know what's going on in the home? Nobody there doing any assessment of these kids' lives, and kids are going a lot. The school system is not following data. I hear one lady sit here talk about data from SALU data, follow the data. We reactive, not proactive. We can be proactive and shield things to make sure our children are psychologically well. I want to hold you to your statement. I get a letter from you that say you're committed to our kids' overall well-being, about safety, and their mental health and everything. Prove it. In the handbook, it say about bullying. You don't tolerate it from kids, but you tolerate it from the adults. So the kids are judged a higher standard than the people who's managing them. Doesn't make any sense. The handbook says if you bully, go to trusted person in the trusted adult in a building. What do you do when there is none? What do you do? There's no guidance for it. We're running around worried about being killed. The National Institute of Health data say number one reason for death, this age group, accidents. Number 2, suicide. Number 3, homicide. Number 2, suicide. What we gonna do? What we gonna do? Ignore the fact that school, life, peer pressure, everything play a role? Or we're gonna keep walking around pretending it only kids, bullying kids? No. I hear that man minimizing, gaslighting. I hear him telling people their own lived experiences are not real. You know, I not like this until a couple years ago, when I subjected to racial discrimination at work. It got so bad. Broke me. Broke me. Not silence me. Mess my voice up. But I not be silenced. And I will fight till I die. For anybody that I see treating anybody like I see happening. It's interesting, there was a text about, can we talk about the workers? No, that's wrong. We're talking about the kids who are impacted by the workers. How can you talk about the kids in a school without talking about the workers? So I don't know how you rectify that. But somehow, you have to understand, you are not safe from the workers because they're messing with our kids. They're not up way or down way. It's together. People don't generally go pick up a gun, start shooting. They don't cut themselves for nothing. This is serious. And I will never be quiet. My aunt just died. Ago, afraid to vote for Barack Obama. She thought she'd get arrested. Cousin killed in jail in Warren County. decades ago, nothing anybody can do. We're not in that time. We already did that. We're not doing it anymore. We're not doing it. If we are not treated right, we are not being quiet. And I don't care what group, I don't care who they represent. Everyone has a right to be treated with the same respect that the Lord has given every single one of us. I am no better than you, and you are certainly no better than me. You are no less than, but you are no better than. I cannot wait until the school year is over. It is making me sicker. This stress is making me sicker, which is making my kids sicker. Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. White, thank you for being here tonight. I would like to say, before we go on, that that was difficult to hear. I am available. Dr. Polio will be available whenever you want to talk to us. You do not have to wait to a Tuesday night board meeting. We are at your service. We are here to serve. So I feel that I must say that at this time tonight. So we are here whenever you want to talk to us. Our next speaker is Barry Finley. Barry Finley. Our next speaker is Sidney Finley. Sidney Finley. Welcome, Ms. Finley.
Thank you. Hello, just before my time starts, my name is Sidney Finley, and I'm a junior at DuPont Manual High School. I was the first of my parents' children to be bullied by my principal. It was my freshman year of high school. After deciding to make the big chop and go natural, I felt confident, liberated, and true to myself. However, when not one, not two, but three white males decided to put their hands in my hair, invade my personal space, and cross lines that I had repeatedly told them not to cross, my whole attitude changed. One boy even asked me why I was so upset over nothing, patronizing me, saying that it wasn't a big deal and that I needed to chill. Initially believing that the administrators of my school would handle this situation, my parents and I presented them with it. Well, you know, boys can be inquisitive, one of my assistant principals told me. So curiosity makes it okay to harass me. Using that logic, that assistant principal was telling me that if a boy is inquisitive, that makes it okay for him to do whatever he wants to any girl that he is curious about. To them, my situation was not important. They justified what those boys did to me, even after I pleaded with them to stop several times. After this, the AP said that if anything like this were to happen again, that there would be consequences for their actions. However, when this did happen again, when I repeatedly pleaded with a group of white boys to stop touching a black girl's hair, the principal of my school told my parents that they did not give the names of the students that bullied me, that harassed me. Therefore, he could not take any further action against them. Knowing that this was not true, I was once again baffled at how a group of administrators could disregard such an important issue, could shift the accountability and blame onto my parents and myself, a 16-year-old student. At the time, I was 14. After this experience, I knew that my principal, a person who was supposed to lead and protect students, had no intention of doing so on my part. To this day, I struggle with my confidence and ability to defend myself because they all made me feel as if I could not do so. I have heard similar stories from others at my school as well. Teachers single out black students, putting one girl in a biology closet with chemicals alone while the other white students got to stay in the hallway. Teachers denying students permission to celebrate Black culture at my school's Black History Month program that I am extremely proud of. The principal of my school pulling students into secret office meetings that other students would talk to me about, lasting entire periods of class. The principal speaking for an hour and 10 minutes about how Black people are not oppressed, but that white people are. Dismissing the concerns that Black students had brought to him, the same way that he did mine. Administrators should be held accountable to whatever standards that are in place, including those set in place for bullying. If they were, my principal and assistant principals would not feel as if they could have handled my situation the way that they did. And here I am today, bringing this to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Finley. Our next speaker is Leslie Rios. Leslie Rios. Leslie. Welcome.
Hello, good evening. My name is Leslie Rivas. I am the parent of 2 Latinx JCPS students. My oldest child is a 7th grader, and we're going to be applying for high schools this next coming school year. He is at the age of 6 years old, he decided he wanted to be an engineer. By the time he was 11 years old, he decided he wanted to go to an Ivy League school, and he wants to attend Manual High School. However, the district's handling of the allegations made over 4 months ago against the principal of DuPont Manual High School has me questioning whether this board and this district can or cares to keep my child safe at what is arguably the best academic public high school in the state of Kentucky. For more than 4 months, there has been no transparency into the ongoing investigation against these allegations, and he's been allowed to remain in power at this high school. And those allegations have included, and this is public knowledge, intimidation and retaliation against students and teachers of color, recorded racially insensitive and at times blatantly racist language towards students of color, and explicitly questioning the genitalia of a student without the presence or permission of a parent or guardian. I also want to just quickly read from the student handbook the definition of bullying per JCPS. Bullying means repeated, deliberate physical, verbal, or social attacks or intimidation directed towards another person. There is a marked imbalance of power between the bully and the victim. Though this individual has attempted to apologize for some transgressions, it remains that it is not the responsibility of the students to teach an administrator or teacher how to behave. And it is not acceptable for adults in power to not understand the trauma that they can so easily inflict on brown, Black, and LGBTQ youth. It's not acceptable for adults in charge of the education of our youth to not know or recognize their own bias towards our children. It is the responsibility of this board and this district to ensure not only the physical safety of all of our students, but the emotional safety of our children while in your care. Every day that this individual retains their position while this investigation is pending is further jeopardizing the emotional well-being of marginalized youth in his care, and also further eroding the faith parents of marginalized students have in this district's ability to educate and properly protect our children of color. And as a member of this community, as a mother of 2 Latinx children who this district is solely responsible for 30 hours of every single week, I want to know what specific actions are going to be taken to handle this situation and when it will be concluded. And will my child be safe at Manual High School if he chooses to enroll there freshman year and is accepted? That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ashley Eisenminger. Ashley Eisenminger. Welcome, Ms. Eisenminger.
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, so my name is Ashley. I'm here with Louisville Surge, Louisville Showing Up for Racial Justice. Sorry, I'm feeling a little emotional. I'm here tonight in solidarity with the demand to remove police from the Jefferson County Public School System. I'm here tonight in solidarity against all forms of racist policing and police brutality, including that committed against the youth of our community. I'm here tonight because Louisville is a beloved community to me, one in which I hope to one day see equity and justice. The presence of police in our schools does not serve to uphold these values, but to tear them down. Previously mentioned, the ACLU recently released an infographic, a white paper, called Bullies in Blue, which illustrates the dangers and injustice of school policing. Louisville, Kentucky is highlighted in this infographic for an incident at Olmsted Academy North, in which a 13-year-old was choked unconscious by a police officer in 2015. In light of this, in addition to the Jeffersontown High School incident last year, it's my belief that JCPS is on the path to becoming a model for discrimination and violence in schools at the hands of police, unless we make a drastic change. To quote the ACLU, school referrals to law enforcement and arrest disparately affect students of color and students with disabilities. School policing must be assessed for its contributions to these disparate contacts with the justice system and for infringement of students' rights to be free from discrimination on the basis of race and disability. To quote Dennis Parker, director of ACLU's Racial Justice Program, the atmosphere of fear and mistrust experienced by many people of color on the streets as a result of unwarranted stops and arrests has even greater consequences when it occurs in schools, which are supposed to be safe spaces conducive to learning, not places to prepare young people for a place in the criminal justice system and correctional institutions. I was encouraged to speak to my own experience in the JCPS school system, and to do so, I struggled with mental illness as an adolescent, I still do, obsessive compulsive disorder, depression, anxiety. Does that mean my time is up? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. We have 3 additional speakers. Our next speaker is Richard Wilson. Mr. Richard Wilson. Welcome, Mr. Wilson.
Good evening, Board, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Richard Wilson. I am a parent of a graduate of Manual High School and also a parent of a current student at Manual High School. But I'm here to talk about the difference in treatment of, or maybe I should put it this way, the lack of what I see as due process for the investigations that are going on, one with the principal and one with the teacher. I had an incident, or my son had an incident with a different teacher, a Spanish teacher at school, and I went and talked to the principal about it, and we had a meeting. We sat down with the teacher, we talked about it, but my son said that he felt that him and another, or the only other African-American student in his Spanish class were being discriminated against. During Black History Month, there was a program where a speaker came into the auditorium, and my son wanted to go down and listen to the speaker. They was giving out some virtual reality goggles afterwards, but it was a African lady, I believe she was a CEO of a company. Anyway, I didn't care about the virtual, the goggles. I wanted my son to be able to listen to this African-American CEO. Anyway, he didn't get to go down, and there were several other issues, but the issue I'm talking about tonight is, that teacher seemed to have gotten some kind of due process. The teacher that we've been talking about a lot tonight, I don't think they got the same due process, and I don't really understand why, and I don't think it's fair. So I'm here more so to show my support for that teacher, but also more so wanted to make sure that all teachers and students get the due process that they're due. I hate to say it this way, but, I see a lot of lawsuits coming after this, not this particular thing, but things that have been talked about tonight. And, as a taxpayer, I'd rather not my tax dollars go and paying somebody for lawsuits that they win. I want students to benefit from my tax dollars. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here tonight. Our next speaker is Dr. Glamour. Dr. Glamour. Our last speaker is Ron Triplett. Ron Triplett. Ron Triplett. That completes our speakers for this evening. Thank you very much for being here this evening. We're going to move back to the agenda items. Next on our agenda, we will move down to our action items.
Chair Porter. One more.
I'm sorry, Miss Christy Kelly, I apologize. Welcome, Ms. Kelly. Thank you for being here.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. First, I want to thank the parents and the students, particularly Ms. Finley and the first parent that spoke. As I listened to them, and specifically the student, Ms. Finley, I thought about myself and how I experienced everything that she experienced as a JCTA certified teacher, standing up and advocating against bullying and against my colleagues of abusing students. And I'm hoping and praying that this board is listening, because I am hearing manual students, like I saw millions of our young people exercise their freedom of speech, constitutional rights. And I thought about how I'm at home missing my students and how I would have been incorporating this in our history lessons and teaching. And I'm an ECE teacher, but I like to teach with rigor because I believe those students are often left behind. And it saddens my heart to hear that the same thing that I experienced and that I was trying to save and protect so many of my students from experiencing, that even at our best schools, it's going on. And what I don't get is that there seems to be a lack of connection, and I know that the board always says it does not have oversight. That falls to Superintendent Dr. Polio. But there is a disconnection with administrators being held accountable when things are brought to them, whether it's from an employee, a parent, or a student. Every day when I go into class, in every school that I've worked at, I go in there and I think, I'm going to treat these children the way that I would want my children treated. That means protecting them. That means giving them the best education. And although nobody in this district may not admit it, when I was here 3 months ago, you know, I brought to light a lot of issues that was going on at the alternative school that I will not name, a lot of things that every speaker tonight touched on that was going on. And I'm glad to hear that the ball was halted and that it's going to be a task force formed. And my question is to the board is that I feel like that I would love to have a seat at that table. I'm a very, very dedicated ECE teacher. And I also want to bring the attention that I'm on FMLA, but I'm still receiving termination letters for being a whistleblower and retaliation. And I would like for somebody to look into that and to get back with me. I should be able to recover because I'm looking forward to getting back in that classroom. I'm all about making a difference. That's my passion. That's my purpose. And teaching is my life. So I'll be back.
Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. We're going to move on to the action items. If you were a speaker and you choose to leave at this time, we'll give you about 30 seconds if you feel like that you need to leave. And I also want to say that we have made an adjustment in our agenda that the information item, the acceptance of the report on charter school performance framework, is not going to be discussed tonight. If anyone's sitting here waiting for that discussion, the information item, acceptance of report on charter school performance framework, will not be heard tonight. So we are going to move on to our action item. Our first action item from Dr. Polio is the recommendation for approval of budget priorities for 2018-19. Dr. Polio, thank you, everyone, and I am being aware of the time. It's after 8, about 8:18, as a matter of fact. So thank you, everyone. Dr. Polio.
Yes, and I know our speakers are leaving, but I wanted to reiterate the point that we are here and available, and will continue to act on the information that we receive. At this time, I would like to call Cordelia Harden to the table to discuss our 18-19 approval of budget priorities. We presented this at a work session at our last board meeting. So we're not going to review a lot of that, but get the chance to approve that. So I'll turn it over to a brief presentation to Cordelia.
As Dr. Polio said, we had the work session 2 weeks ago, so this information you have seen. What we have done is added a little more clarification so that you understand some of these programs that we are funding. So that is the main change. If there's any questions, we are here to answer those.
Questions? Is there a motion to approve the budget priorities for 2018-19? Motion by Ms. Horn, second by Board Member Geese. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next on the action item is the recommendation for approval of facility changes. Dr. Polio.
Yes, thank you, Chair Porter. As we've talked about over the course of several meetings, the process that we have gone through for 18-19 for facilities changes has been extensive. I believe it began well over a year ago with talk about needs for 18-19. I know at one of the first meetings of the year, I talked about ESL having their own Newcomer Academy. I didn't realize it was going to be that challenging to make that a reality, but it has been a challenge, and we've gone through many iterations, several facilities committee meetings. We've gone to many public input sessions at the schools and the facilities that are being used, and in the end, we think we are making a final recommendation after consolidation of TAPS and the Du Bois Academy last meeting, and turning Westport TAP into a Early Childhood Newcomer Center. We believe our final recommendations will get us to where we want to be for 2018-19. And so those two, the first one, the Phoenix School of Discovery, moving to 502 Wood Road, which is currently the Mary Grace Yeager Education Center, which will then allow the ESL Newcomer Academy program, which are currently located at the Academy at Shawnee, Iroquois High School, Keenes Education Center, and the Phoenix School of Discovery, will be consolidated into one facility, 3741 Pulliam Drive, which is the current location of Phoenix School. We believe this will give the opportunity for our ESL newcomer population to have one school, as you heard earlier, student belonging, and the supports that they need in order to be successful, and provide all of our intervention services into one location. So we believe that this is a very positive move in the end for our students, to move forward for these students, both at Phoenix School, which they will have their own school and facility. It will be renovated. We'll do a lot of work on it this year, and it will be fully renovated a year from now in the summertime, and then also for our ESL Newcomer Academy. we'll take questions and comments that you have at this time.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion? I'm sorry, Mr. Brady.
Not really a question or comment, but I do want to let everyone know that each board member's had a chance to talk to the administration individually, and so we are not making this decision from an uninformed point of view. We've had extensive questions, so we've had a lot of those chances to have a lot of those questions answered.
Is there a motion to approve the facility changes? Board Member Geese, motion, second by Dr. Wilner. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations, Newcomer.
Moving to the next agenda item, the recommendation for approval of job descriptions. Dr. Polio.
Yes, as I said at the beginning, we have received the report from the Council of Great City Schools. And hold up, I know I have a PowerPoint here, I'm hoping. You got the PowerPoint? Thank you. So we received the recommendation, and this is in two parts that we will be presenting to you. So part of it will be on the next item. We are going to have two separate votes. The first one will be recommendation of approval for new job descriptions. And then the second, and they are interrelated very much, obviously, is the approval of org chart changes. This is, as I said at the beginning, the first of two at least extensive recommendations we will bring to you for our reorganization. The next one will be in the April board meeting, and then we will continue on possibly in the May with all new positions by July 1st. So this works for me. All right, so clearly, as we said before, our priorities are improving culture and climate, increasing student learning, improving organizational coherence. We believe these changes impact all three of those. As you can see, the team, as you know, it's about a 56-page report that has been made public, has made many recommendations. We are starting at the superintendent cabinet level and at the assistant superintendent level so that we can make important changes to that. Another major part of this is coherence. The team found at the Council of Great City Schools that we do not have job coherence at this level. We have some positions with the same name, different pay grades. We have many different job titles, and it is up to us to provide coherence through this work. And so this will be a major step forward as we do this. So job descriptions on the first part that you will approve, we will bring more to you so that everyone in central office will be, we will have minimal number of names for positions, and we will have coherence with grades of these. So under the job descriptions, all of our chiefs will be grade 18. All of our assistant superintendents will be grade 16. And you will see in our next, when we get into org chart, that new structure bases it on elementary, middle, and high, and I'll talk about that a little more when I get into that job, that organizational chart. And finally, we are changing the name and adding a new job description. So instead of a job that is currently called Evaluation and Transition Coordinator, we will now have Executive Administrator, and that will be a grade 14. And those will also allow us to assist in evaluation and supervision of principals, which currently our assistant superintendents have 27 schools at approximate number. Each achievement area is a little different. According to the Council of Great City Schools, 27-1 is not an effective model for support and oversight of schools. It should be about 15-1. So with the executive administrator, we will be able to do that. So I'll get into org charts next. So I will stop at that point. We are also adding in our job descriptions, I don't see that on here, several positions that will be in these job descriptions also that are a part of this. And so those job descriptions include a new general counsel, a chief of staff position, a chief of schools position, and a chief of human resources position that are all recommended by the Council of Great City Schools. So I will stop and take questions at that point, and then we will move on to the org chart changes.
And before I go into questions, I want to remind us that Dr. Polio has had us in to talk to us about this, so let's not revisit what we've already made the trip around the block for the first time in the interest of time. So having said that, Dr. Wilner.
So thank you for the presentation and the recommendations. Got a question from a constituent today about the elimination of the ombudsman position, and the concern was, would there be any place for staff members, community members to express concerns? And I said that in fact we had a hotline. So people seem not to know that we have that. So they thought that the ombudsman elimination was just a cost savings measure. So I just would request that we get information out about how people can submit confidential concerns that they have. So that's one small thing. Another thing, so we did meet with you, but at the time that we met with you, didn't have a copy of the report. So I had a chance to read that. And it was an impressive report, and I think it answered a lot of questions. At least in my mind, it was very validating of some of the questions that I've had, that other board members have had, about issues like investigations and accountability and ongoing concerns with human resources, the clarity of our goals and how we evaluate progress on our goals. And so even though it pointed out a lot of concerns, we know those concerns are there. And so I just appreciate that we requested this, that we funded this investigation from the actual experts and telling us how to turn the ship around, that we're doing that decisively and quickly and aggressively under your leadership. So I think it's very positive. But I also want to say that to right the ship, to get us going, those last two paragraphs, I also am feeling very optimistic about where we're heading. But it's not going to just be job descriptions and org charts. It's going to be a real change of culture. It's going to be that change management, that internal and external communication. And so I know our task tonight is really just to take this first step. But I look forward, now that we've had a chance to see the report, I really look forward from hearing more from you in the weeks and months ahead about those other pieces that are much bigger than just org charts and job changes.
Yeah, there is no doubt that all five of these components and many others fit together. I mean, we heard one in the work session tonight. So there is a lot of work ahead. I think the positive part about the report, too, there was very little, and even in conversations with the folks from Council of Great City Schools about ineffective employees or people not working hard, the overarching feeling where people were working extremely hard and very competent, professional people, but that the structure wasn't supportive of that work. And I think we're taking steps there, but there is no doubt that this is only one of many steps that has to be taken.
Other questions? Ms. Duncan?
Dr. Polio, I know at the time that we met, I did not have the job descriptions. And so when we got the job descriptions, I noted that minimum qualifications were jumping out at me, where we have several positions, chief of schools, chief of staff, executive administrator, assistant superintendent, that don't, in minimum qualifications, that don't require experience as a principal. And is that consistent with what we had before, or is that a new deletion that we don't have that requirement or qualification for being assistant superintendent, or, like I said, those other positions?
So we took feedback. Our goal was to align them all, and so it was striking to see the difference in requirements for positions across central office, which is another part of Coherence. So the wording that we have placed in the job description is a certain number of years for administrative experience. And so it doesn't necessarily say principal experience, but administrative experience that we think is important to have. Now, some of the jobs, they are classified, which means they can be a school-based person, a principal, a central office person, or they could be a non-certified position too. So I will give an example of that. The director, or excuse me, the chief of human resources could be either one. We are opening up that to whoever we feel is the best candidate to lead HR. And that very well could be a school-based person that's certified, or it could very well be an external person that has HR experience, and we want a certain number of years of administrative experience. Now, when we get into the assistant superintendent, which needs superintendent certification, or our executive administrator, we are asking us for a certain number of years of administrative experience, which is equal to what a school-based administrator would be.
Okay, I know I just want to register my concern, and I hope that, I know it's under desirable qualifications, and I hope that we will be able to look at the desirable qualifications and meet those as well on here. But I just wanted to register my concern, because I think it's very important that principal background experience be there to give credibility to the leadership of these roles. But I'm just saying that, and you will pick the people that you consider to be the most effective. I did want to ask a question about Chief of Equity and the need for superintendent certification. What's the thinking there that you have to have a superintendent certification to be a Chief of Equity?
Well, I believe that was an original at the hiring position because it started as assistant superintendent. I think that was the reason that was on the job description.
Okay. I think those are my questions. Thank you.
Board Member Geese.
Dr. Polio, we reached the moment in the discussion where we're talking about the assistant superintendentships and how they'll be restructured. We have? Okay.
Yes, I mean, let's discuss that. I mean, these
Sure.
overlap very much, so it's very difficult to separate them into two, so
sure.
Go ahead,
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't getting ahead of myself in my question. So I had the opportunity to speak with several administrators throughout my district, District 4, and they're all very excited for this plan. I think a return to the levels of having a focus on elementary, middle, and high is something that has been sorely needed over the last several years, and I think that is something that at least the people in my district are very, very excited about. They feel as if they'll be able to be led more effectively and efficiently in that manner. The only concern that I heard is that they want to make sure that the people who are leading middle have had experience in middle, the people who are leading high have had experience in high, and the people who are leading elementary have had experience in elementary. Of particular concern to several in my district were the middle schools. As we know, those tend to be overlooked, and if you have not been in a middle school and had middle school experience, sometimes they can be quite difficult to understand. So I wanted to lend my voice to their concerns and rise that up to your leadership.
So that is directly stated in the report, that a problem with our current structure is that many times assistant superintendents who are working with all three levels might not have that expertise. Now, I think our assistant superintendents have been very effective at working with all levels, but clearly if they have experience in that area, that once again lends itself to being successful with those principles. So there is no doubt that we will, at least as a part of the interview process, that they are going to have to show that they have an expertise at that level. I do want to add something to the conversation around schools. We will be most likely bringing to you two additional components to this that we have yet to flush out or decide upon, but we are getting close to that, and this will be at the April meeting, is where we place special schools or alternative schools, especially for 1 year as we are in this task force process. That will come to you. And the second part that is going to be very important for us, and we don't have the exact language around, but is an Office of School Turnaround, where priority schools will, and those that could be close, which in our new accountability system, it will have the opportunity for schools to come in and out much more fluidly. that we are going to have to provide support to schools in a much more intentional way. And so at the April meeting, we will also bring you a plan that will detail what we are doing, and we are tapping into some large city school districts, such as Miami, who have showed success around this, that we want to bring to you some ideas in April about how we can better support what were called priority schools.
Other questions, comments? Mr. Brady?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Dr. Polio for moving so swiftly in doing this reorganization. I think that, as Dr. Wilner, or Vice Chair Wilner had stated earlier, that many of us have had some concerns over the years about the way this organization has been structured. And in particular, I'm grateful to see that legal is coming back into the district internally. I think that's something that I've always had a great concern about. To that end, though, I do want the public to understand that this is not a reflection on the services that have been provided by Frank Mellon at all. I can tell you that through especially all of the last year, I relied heavily on Frank's guidance on this, and I think that we'll be still engaging with Mr. Mellon and his law firm for other legal advice, so I don't want this to be in any way, shape, form, or even any perception lingering out there that this is a statement against that. It's not. I think this makes for a more efficient district. It makes for a better situation where our administrators can contact our legal team, and the legal team makes the legal decision as to what to do next, not putting our assistant superintendents in that position to make legal judgments. I do have one critique, and this is kind of following up on what Ms. Duncan had said, and this is regarding the position that we have listed out here for legal counsel, and the fact that it doesn't say at all that there is not even in desirable qualifications that the person would have experience with Kentucky state law in regards to how it affects schools. I think that's something we need to have at least in the desirable qualifications area, because this can be a very niche area, and there's lots of statutes that relate to our schools, and I think it's something that we need to at least call out in the desirable qualifications area. It's not mentioned at all.
In the requirements, it says school law. It might not say
And
Kentucky.
it actually says state statute. So I can take a look at that real quick because I had it pulled up.
You might want to check that. I mean,
So,
it says, I believe it says school law. It might not say Kentucky school law.
And let's see, I'm looking at the right one as chief of schools.
And the first under minimum qualifications, law degree from a bona fide school of law and knowledge of school law.
Okay.
We can take a look at that and bring it back to you if we need to.
Was that
Yeah,
question
it does
turned
say,
in?
yeah, it does say knowledge of school
Is that
law,
on our
but I would,
list?
yeah, okay. I'd like to have some type of that spelled out a little bit more as having experience with Kentucky state school law in the desirable qualifications area. Knowledge of is really, is very vague.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Duncan, do you have one more question?
I do, but I wanted to get a clarification on that. In the old job description that we had, was that stated differently, or was it stated the way we have it?
I can't say exactly. I can tell you that in these, we depended heavily on what the Kentucky Department of Education recommended. So this was based on the KDE recommendation. Now, a couple of these they don't have recommendations for, but general counsel is one. So I don't know. We did not go back to the old job listing, I don't believe, but we depended on what the KDE recommends.
Okay, I think we've heard all questions. Anyone else have questions? I just want to say, as it pertains to before I call for the motion, We have received this information from the Council of Great City Schools, and with the guidance of the superintendent and his staff, they will be making recommendations to the board. Sometimes when we receive audits and reports, people read every word and go into panic. That's not the intent. The intent is to bring forth a better organizational structure for the good of this district. So every word that's on the page, it's up to the superintendent and his staff to make a determination if they're going to follow that recommendation for the good of the Jefferson County Public School District. I'm saying that to cut down on angst. It's about relationships, it's about team building, it's about culture and climate, and it's about organizational coherence. And I think everybody gets that, but I just want to say that so everybody is clear on that we're moving forward under the direction of Dr. Marty Polio for what's good for our district. Having said that, is there a motion to approve the job descriptions? Board Member Geese, second by Ms. Horn. All those in favor? It has approved unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item is the approval of the organizational charts. Dr. Polio.
So as I said, these are very interrelated, so I don't need to spend a whole lot of time, but I did want to show you there we are. And so if you're able to see these, this gives exactly the recommendations from the Council of Great City Schools that they gave us. And so you can see in green the ones that we are adding to the cabinet level. We believe in the end this is going to be much more efficient. The general counsel in green, the chief of staff in green, chief of schools, and the chief of human resources that they clearly said needs to be a chief level. In the gold color there, those are what you just approved, which is so that all chiefs are now on the same grade. Also, a few that we will be discussing that we are not bringing to you. You can see on there a spot for internal audit, risk management, chief information technology officer, and then a couple spots below the chief of staff. So we are not bringing those at this time. We are going to evaluate those. So what we are bringing to you, as you can see on the org chart, is the addition of the green spots there. And we believe this will lead to a very efficient executive cabinet. And as I told you, this will also include a chief of schools, which I don't believe is in green on there. Oh, there it is. I'm sorry, chief of schools. I didn't see it. Which, as I said, and we talked about, the assistant superintendents will report to the chief of schools. We will have 3 elementary school assistant superintendents, 1 middle school assistant sup, a high school assistant sup, an executive assistant under each. And then we will bring back to you how we will do our special schools and then support of our turnaround our priority schools. And so our next steps in the process, just so you see, is that we will continue to look at the report. We'll have more discussions possibly at our retreat on the 13th, continue meeting with cabinet members, and then our next round or discussions we will bring to you, which will really get into the next level beneath cabinets. And I don't believe that a restructuring at those levels in central office has occurred in my time in JCPS, which is 21 years. So I think it's a good time to really look at that, digest the report, have discussions about it, and bring back to you in 4 weeks a next round of reorganization recommendations.
Questions? Ms. Horn.
I wanted to ask a question about the funding document. The question in folks' mind, I guess Cordelia, can you give us a little insight into, it looks like it's not like, it's like a cost neutral, or how does that work with you're eliminating positions? Are those really funded, and so that's the savings? because we were funding those positions anyway, so it is a cost saving. Can you explain, how does that work?
Sure. Those positions are budgeted for next year. So when we presented you the budget, there was actually money attached to those positions, and they were budgeted. So Chief Business Officer had money budgeted for it, and other positions that we eliminated had money budgeted for it. So with that, and we believe will be savings, what we predict to be savings from bringing general counsel back in, that we believe will be saving money. And our goal in the end of this, as we continue on, is that we will not increase spending at central office. And we would like to return, as you read in the report, teachers, a number of teachers back to schools, or increase the number of teachers, I should say. That's more appropriate. So, yes, we believe this is cost neutral.
And then when I talked to, principals around the district and administrators, they were very positive about the changes. Do you feel that this will improve the opportunities for success for all students by making these changes?
Yes, I believe so, but I think it was important, just like any other time. I think you can see from the recommendations of the Council of Great City Schools that they felt like at the end that I was right on in what many of the recommendations that they brought. And so it's important to have other eyes, though, that it's not we're in the middle of the forest, that we are bringing in experts to see this. And so this is very reflective of other large urban school districts in the United States, that they found missing areas that we do not have to support students and school success. So I believe it, and I think we have an outside agency that is made up of educators in large urban school districts who believe the same.
And so by making these structural changes, these systemic changes to org charts, you think that it can have a real effect on things that we're trying to be strategic about in our strategic plan, in closing the gap, and in better climate and culture, and higher achievement. Some of these systemic changes, these organizational changes, can really, in the end, have a huge effect.
Without question. I think we have seen that, and the report shows that with working in a lot of silos, that we have some areas that multiple divisions are working on the same role, and in many times no one is working on the same role. And so things aren't happening that maybe should happen from the cabinet level. And so, yes, I believe in the end the support for schools will drastically increase, which means students. I also felt this passionate about it that I didn't think that we could wait until 1920 to do many of these things, and that's why we have to move quickly, because staffing is occurring, and by July 1st we have to have people in positions.
Okay, I think that concludes on the questions. Is there a motion for the approval of the organizational chart? Board Member Geese, second by Ms. Horn. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Polio. Again, the information item on the charter school performance framework has been withdrawn from the meeting tonight. We're moving now to the consent calendar. I have not been notified of anything to be pulled down from the consent calendar. Is there something that needs to get pulled down? Hearing nothing, is there a motion to accept the consent calendar? Motion by Ms. Horn, second by Board Member Geese. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. At this point, I think we get to move on to tie bids for the evening. Board Member Wilner. We actually have 4 tie bids this evening.
So this is item numbers 22 and 23 on bid ID 7533 for locks and miscellaneous hardware. This item is awarded to suspense. Accredited lock supply. The next is item number 47 on bid ID 7537 for musical instruments and supplies. Bid is awarded to Washington Music Center. Item number 93 on bid ID 7537, also for musical instruments and supplies. Bid awarded to Noteworthy Sheet Music. This is item numbers 32, 33, 34, and 35 on bid ID 7537 for musical instruments and supplies. Awarded to Doo-Wop Shop.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wilner. We're moving on now to the board planning calendar. Is there any discussion on the planning calendar? Any discussion on the planning calendar? Is there a motion to receive the planning calendar? Board member Kolb, second by Ms. Duncan, I think. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously, and Board Member Geese is not currently in the room, but it does pass unanimously. Committee reports. Any committee reports, Ms. Horn?
I've attached, again, the finance peer district comparison. If you can go to slide number 2, it's the one that has the chart. Across the top, it lists several activities that our peer districts are having their finance committee perform. So some of them, you know, one that's still on our list is the facility needs funding review, which would be happening after our current facilities committee makes their 2020, 2021 determinations. So right now we are looking to make sure that we are, as a committee, finance committee, aligned with the board's goals and, for the committee. So I do really need to get some feedback from you. If you look at the activities across the top, we focused a lot of our committee in the past year on budget development and review. We worked most notably a lot on the comprehensive financial calendar and getting that in a shape where the board had input. So the question is, moving forward, what activities does the board desire that the finance committee assist? There's still the alignment of expenditures to strategic plan that's with a new strategic plan that would not be ripe right now, because we'd want to make sure that the new, if there's some new strategic plan, that we don't focus on that. So that was also kind of on our plate. So we just want to get some feedback. If you can provide that to me, I would appreciate it.
Is there a deadline as to when you want your information back?
No, we're not going to meet until we, the finance committee, we don't meet just to meet. So once we get the board feedback on our activities, we will meet, and we're waiting for, finance to complete their, work before we'll take on more of a long-term financing of facility needs. So we're just kind of waiting for the board, to get us a little bit more information on what your, desires and, needs are for the finance committee. And so just as soon as you can, it would be helpful, to look potentially that we could meet in May. So if we could have it, sometime, before the end of April would be helpful.
Thank you. Are there other committee reports? Ms. Duncan?
And I have that prepared to send to you, and I was going to bring it, and I forgot it, so I will get that to you, Ms. Horn. The policy committee met twice, in discussion of the equity or race and equity policy, and we've had further development on that, and I think it's still being reviewed and still being discussed, and our ad hoc committee is going to meet and make some more recommendations to bring back to the policy committee. So that's a work in progress.
Okay. Any other committee reports? Moving on to board reports. Board reports. Board Member Brady.
I just want to say a couple things. First of all, I was it was very exciting, as some of our speakers have mentioned, as our board chair has mentioned, to see so many of our students express their voice and speak out during the March for Our Lives march here locally in Louisville on this Saturday. It was really quite an impressive turnout, despite the fact that there was pouring rain and sub-freezing temperatures with the wind chill factored in. So it was, I don't know what the exact number was, but it seemed to be about, I don't know, around 1,000 or so, it seemed to be. It was quite a big crowd, and it stretched for several blocks. And it was just really great to see so many students take the lead and, as I said, just speak out and use their student voice, not just here in Louisville, but across the country as well. If you ever had any concerns about the future generation, I hope that that was put to rest by the actions of what you've seen of our youth. They're certainly doing more than my generation, but then again, my generation didn't have to deal with some of the issues that they're dealing with. I also want to express some congratulations to Fern Creek's boys basketball team for making the Elite Eight. I had the opportunity to be able to travel up the RUP. Unfortunately, we were not able to move beyond that, but I want to say that the Tigers had a great season, and wanted to express my appreciation for that as well. So, thank you.
Okay, Board Member Wilner.
Just to echo how powerful the March for Our Lives Louisville was. It was good to be there with a couple of other board members, Chris Brady, Chris Call, both there, and the students were amazing. They were in charge. It was all them, and just such a great example for we just need to listen to our students, let them lead, and for us to follow. It was very, very powerful.
Other reports? Just quickly want to say that on Saturday, while the other activities were going on, that there was the grand opening of the Smoketown Wellness Center, which is in a historic building in the Smoketown community. It was a fabulous community event, a fabulous wellness center that will, our students and families will have an opportunity to take advantage of that. It's within walking distance of the new housing in the Smoketown neighborhood, and congratulations to the doctors that were there and for the work that they will provide for the Smoketown community. It's important. I also would like to say that when I had the opportunity to watch MSNBC, the Joy Reid show, the two students that were on there from Manual were Quintez Brown and Naya Matheson. So I just want to give them a shout out, because if they can give them a shout out on MSNBC, I think JCPS deserves to give them a shout out as well. It was a great surprise to see them on there, but it was a great day as well. So those are the two things that I have to report. There's some other events, but I want to hold off on those in the interest of time. So if there are no other board reports, there is no executive session this evening. No additional action items. Is there a motion to adjourn? Board Member Geese, second by Board Member Wilner, and we are currently adjourned at 9 o'clock. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Yes.
Woo-hoo. We are adjourned. Thank you.
I echo your woo.